On a cold, rainy night, a taxi driver picks up an elderly woman, her silence filled with unspoken worry. What seems like an ordinary ride takes a profound turn when John discovers a note she left behind. The words on that note don't just thank him. They set in motion a series of events that will transform his life in ways he never imagined. Hello and welcome to Unveiled Narratives. Today we share another heartfelt story of how a small act of kindness can spark profound and unexpected change. On a cold, rainy night, John, a taxi driver, steers his worn-out taxi through the dimly lit streets. The engine hums unevenly, accompanied by a faint rattle every time the car hits a bump. The wipers screech against the windshield, struggling to keep up with the relentless rain. In the back seat, an elderly woman sits tense, her lips moving in a silent prayer, her eyes fixed ahead but distant, lost in her own fears. John glanced at her through the rearview mirror, noticing the deep furrow in her brow and the trembling of her hands. Something about her struck him, a weight in the air that went beyond the rain and the cold. He hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to speak, but the concern etched on her face compelled him to say something. "Ma'am," he began, his voice gentle, "is everything all right? You look really worried." The woman flinched slightly, as if pulled from her thoughts. She met his gaze in the mirror, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For a moment she said nothing, as if deciding whether to confide in him. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaky, laced with fear. "It's my granddaughter," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "She collapsed at home a little while ago. They've taken her to the hospital and I don't know how serious it is. I just need to get there quickly." John's hands tightened on the steering wheel, his heart sinking at her words. He didn't know this woman, didn't know her granddaughter, but the raw emotion in her voice hit him like a punch to the gut. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and offered a reassuring smile through the mirror. "I'm really sorry to hear that," he said, his tone steady but warm. "But don't worry, kids are stronger than we think. Doctors are amazing these days. Whatever it is, I'm sure they'll handle it. She'll be all right." The woman nodded weakly, though her worry still lingered. She looked at John in the mirror, studying his kind eyes. "Do you have children?" she asked softly, her tone probing for comfort. John nodded, a faint smile breaking through the seriousness of the moment. "I do. My daughter, Sophia, she's 12. Smart, kind, everything I could hope for." The elder woman's face softened at his words. She leaned forward slightly, her tension momentarily easing as she focused on him instead of her own worries. "You must be so proud of her," she said, her voice gentle. "I am," he said, a trace of pride in his voice. "But it hasn't been easy. I lost my wife when Sophia was 5. It's just been the two of us since. She's my whole world. Everything I do is for her." The woman's heart tightened as John spoke of losing his wife. She remembered her own struggles, how after her husband passed, the world seemed unbearably heavy. Raising her children alone had been harder than she ever imagined, and she often wondered how she'd made it through. But somehow, she'd kept going, just as John was doing now for Sophia. The resilience they both shared made her heart ache with understanding. The woman's eyes glimmered with empathy. "She sounds like a wonderful girl," she said. "Is she in school?" "Yeah, middle school now," John said, his tone brightening slightly. "But high school's just around the corner. I'm saving every penny I can to make sure she gets the education she deserves. She's got big dreams, and I want to make sure nothing holds her back." As he finished speaking, the car jolted slightly over a small pothole, the creak of the suspension breaking the brief silence and lingering for a moment. A faint rattle echoed from the engine, its uneven rhythm hinting at the car's long struggle to keep going. The woman's gaze shifted to the interior, the torn upholstery, the worn dashboard, and the uneven hum of the engine all told a story of years of hard use, and a driver who had kept it running against the odds. "This taxi, it must take a lot to keep it going," she said, her voice tinged with curiosity. John chuckled lightly, though there was a hint of weariness in his voice. "You've got no idea," he said. "It's been my lifeline for years, but it's not what it used to be. Repairs every week, and it's getting harder to keep up. I've thought about getting a new one, but, well, Sophia's education comes first. Priorities, you know? The elder woman nodded, her expression thoughtful. For a moment, the worry in her eyes seemed to give way to admiration. "You must really love her," she said softly. "More than anything," John replied, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "She's my princess. She deserves the best, even if it means I have to work twice as hard." The elder woman fell silent, her gaze lingering on him. There was something unspoken in her expression, a quiet acknowledgement of his sacrifices. As the hospital came into view, she seemed to straighten in her seat, her worry returning with full force. John pulled into the hospital parking lot, bringing the taxi to a smooth stop near the entrance. The woman fumbled with her bag, her hands trembling as she searched its contents. After a moment, she looked up, her face stricken with embarrassment. "Oh, dear," she said, her voice faltering. I must have left my purse at home in all the worry and rush to get here. I'm so sorry, but I don't have any money to pay you right now." John shook his head immediately, offering her a warm, understanding smile. "Ma'am, don't worry about it," he said. "Family comes first. Just focus on your granddaughter. You don't need to explain." The woman looked at him, her eyes misty with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't even know what to say." John reached into his pocket, pulling out a worn business card. "If you need a ride later, anytime tonight, just call me," he said. "I'm out driving late anyway. I'll get you where you need to go." The woman took the card, her hand trembling slightly. She clutched it tightly. As John turned his attention to the parking lot, she quickly pulled a small notepad and pen from her bag. She jotted down a few words, her hand shaking as she wrote. Glancing at John for a moment, she quietly placed the note onto the passenger seat, careful not to draw attention. "You're a good man, John," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." John nodded, a faint smile on his face. "You're a good man, John," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." John nodded, a faint smile on his face. "Take care, ma'am," he said. "I hope everything turns out all right." "Take care, ma'am," he said. "I hope everything turns out all right." She closed the door behind her, and John watched as she hurried into the hospital, her figure quickly disappearing into the rain. For a moment, he sat there in silence, his hands resting on the steering wheel. In the quiet of the cab, with the rain pattering softly against the windows, John made a silent prayer. He didn't know the woman or her granddaughter, but in that moment, he carried their fear as if it were his own. He prayed for strength for the grandmother and healing for the child, his own heart heavy with the weight of their struggle. After a few moments, with a final glance toward the hospital, he shifted the car into gear and pulled away into the rain-soaked night. As the rhythmic sound of the rain accompanies his thoughts, John notices something on the back seat, a note, neatly folded. His grip on the steering wheel tightens slightly as he glances at it through the rearview mirror, wondering if it's something the woman left behind. He slows the taxi down and pulls over to the side of the road, stopping at the corner. He switches on the interior light and reaches for the note. Carefully, he unravels it, his eyes scanning the words as he begins to read. "Thank you for your kindness. I'm truly sorry for any trouble I caused, but I'll never forget your generosity. I can't repay you directly, but I know someone who can. Please go to this address tomorrow at noon. Something special will be waiting for you." John's mind raced as he read the note. Who was this woman, really? He hadn't thought his kindness warranted anything in return. Yet, here was a message urging him to visit a location the next day. What could be waiting for him there? The idea of being involved in something bigger than a simple ride lingered in his mind. As he tucked the note back into his pocket, confusion mixed with curiosity. Tomorrow, he would find out. But for now, all he could do was wonder who this stranger was and what her connection was to the mysterious offer. The next afternoon, John follows the address from the note, still uncertain about what he's walking into. The address leads him to a large building, likely a showroom of some sort. He steps out of his old, rusted taxi and walks up to the entrance. The doors open automatically, and he's greeted by the sound of silence and the polished gleam of the cars displayed inside. Before he can take it all in, a manager approaches, offering a handshake. "Mr. John, welcome," the manager says with a warm smile. "We've been expecting you. Please follow me." John, still unsure, follows the manager down the rows of gleaming vehicles. His mind races as they walk, questions flooding him. The manager stops in front of one of the cars, turning to John with a smile. "This is it, the car you've been waiting for." John's heart skips a beat. Before him is a brand new taxi, sleek and clean, a far cry from his rusted, patched-up old vehicle. He looks at it, unable to believe what he's seeing. It doesn't feel real. The manager continues, "It's been fully paid for. Mrs. Evelyn Crawford personally called us this morning and insisted we prepare it for you. She wanted you to have something better." John stands frozen, the weight of the gesture sinking in. The kindness of a stranger, the very person he had helped the night before, had now led to this moment. It's too much to process all at once. The manager, noticing his reaction, continues in a reassuring tone, "The woman you helped last night, she's not just a kind stranger. Her son owns this dealership chain. She made sure this car was yours." John stood silent for a moment, still processing the manager's words. The manager gestures toward the car. "It's all yours, Mr. John." John reaches for the keys and moves to open the driver's door. As he does, his eyes catch something unusual, a crisp white envelope resting on the driver's seat. Curious, he picks it up, feeling the weight of its contents. Carefully, he tears it open and unfolds the paper inside. It's another note, and as he reads the familiar handwriting, he realizes it's from Mrs. Crawford. Slowly, he begins to read. "I also want you to know that your daughter, Sophia, has been nominated for a full scholarship through a foundation I've been involved with. She will receive a call soon. I hope this helps give her the future you've been working so hard to provide." John's eyes widen. For a moment he stands there, staring at the words, his mind overwhelmed with gratitude. Sophia's future is secure, and it's all thanks to a simple act of kindness. He never expected any of this. He only did what he thought was right, helping a stranger in need. Now it feels like the universe is returning that kindness in a way he could never have imagined. Just as John is trying to make sense of everything, his phone rings. The number is unfamiliar, but something about it feels significant. He hesitates for a moment, then answers, his heart still pounding. "Mr. John, I wanted to personally thank you again for your kindness last night," Mrs. Crawford says, her voice warm and steady. "I'm so relieved to let you know my granddaughter is doing well. The doctors said she'll make a full recovery. Your words really helped me stay calm when I needed it most." John's throat tightens and he takes a deep breath, fighting back tears. The weight of everything, the events of the past day, presses down on him. He's been part of something bigger than he ever imagined. His small act of kindness has not only changed his life, but has also brought comfort to someone in their moment of need. "I'm so glad to hear that," John says, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been worried about her." The woman's tone softens, filled with gratitude. "She's strong, just like you, and I know you'll keep going for your daughter. I wanted to let you know that everything I've done today was to give back to you, because I see the good in you. You deserve this, John." The words hit him deeply, leaving him momentarily speechless. His emotions threaten to overwhelm him as the enormity of it all sinks in. The new car, the scholarship for Sophia, the relief of knowing the woman's granddaughter is safe. It all feels like a second chance, a fresh beginning. As John grips the keys tightly, a memory of his own father surfaces. His father's words about kindness being the one gift that always finds its way back. He'd taught John to be kind, not because it guaranteed rewards, but because it was the right thing to do. Now, as John reflects on the chain of events, he realizes how true those words were. He decides to share this lesson with Sophia, reminding her that even small acts of compassion, done without expectation, can ripple outward in unimaginable ways, and life, in its own time, finds a way to repay kindness. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Share this story with someone who could use a reminder of the power of kindness. You never know how far it can go. See you in our next story. Until then, take care, and remember, kindness is free, but its impact is priceless.